digital world because you weren't finding what you wanted in the regular old.
No, I started my career in entertainment. For those of you that don't know, I'm a YouTuber that makes a lot of comedy-driven content, and I started in traditional...
Like super successful.
That's very kind.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know her show. It's Grace. You should watch it. It's wonderful. It's really fun.
Yeah, I started in the traditional route. I went to college, which is not as normal for most YouTubers now. And I graduated and I moved to New York, and I wanted to pursue comedy, so I was doing traditional auditions and performing improv, and I was getting lots of no's in all of my auditions and getting maybe 10 people in the theater for my improv shows. And so I started making videos at home as a hobby, not knowing and kind of feeling embarrassed by it because at that point in time, the Tina Feys of like the comedy world were succeeding, and it felt like, you know, putting your nose to the grind and performing and auditioning and going the traditional route was the only means to success. And eventually, these videos that I had been making with my roommate at the time started to garner more attention, and I got hired by a company to make YouTube videos for them, and that started to become my full-time job. And at that point, that's when YouTube, the whole landscape started evolving, and people were finding that they could make careers by starting YouTube channels. And so I did that for a couple years, and then broke off from the company and started my own YouTube channel. And from there, I've been able to have opportunities to, I wrote 2 New York Times best-selling books. I have produced and starred in 3 different films with my 2 content creator best friends, and have gone on live comedy tours. I have a podcast that's still happening. So a lot of different opportunities came because I took a non-traditional route.
How long did it take you before you really started to see critical mass for your audience?
I think, well, I have a little bit of a different history than most YouTubers in that I started working for a company and started a YouTube channel through this company. Although I was producing everything independently, they still owned all of the content.
You were on an MCN, or you?
I was working with a website called My Damn Channel at the time, and they owned everything I did, though I operated as a single-woman production team. I shot everything from my own apartment by myself, edited it, posted it all by myself, and promoted it by myself. And
so eventually you figured out, like...
Yeah, a little too late, I figured out that, oh, most YouTubers own their own content. What a concept, how novel. And so 2 years into the contract with them, the YouTube channel garnered about 2.4 million subscribers.
Amazing.
But I didn't own any of that content, so I kind of had to make another non-traditional choice and start over in 2000.
So you had to abandon 2.5 million subscribers?
I did.
Oh my God.
I had to abandon 2.5 million subscribers and start a new channel, and legally I wasn't able to talk to my audience about what was actually happening, so for them it was the most confusing move I
like
made.
You couldn't even say no forwarding address.
Right, exactly. But thankfully the YouTube community is an actual thriving community of collaborators, and a lot of my collaborative friends spoke out for me and kind of informed the audience about things that they weren't totally privy to on my behalf, and then drove traffic from their channels to mine, and now my channel has over 3 million subscribers, and so
that is so cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very
and
cool.
So then once you had your own channel, then you started monetizing it yourself, essentially, instead of like having all these.
Then I started, and then I worked with an MCN. Full Screen, which is essentially, the agency of the digital world, and they've been an amazing support system over the last few years.
So if you were advising somebody who was, like you, like an aspiring actor, writer, would you advise them to go that route today? Is that still doable? I mean,
yeah, I think it's doable for anyone in any medium, regardless of whether you want to pursue entertainment. That having some form of digital presence right now is nothing but helpful, because we all operate off of our phones and our computers, 90% of the day, and that's how we consume content.
But you'd advise somebody to start their own branded, their own Grace Helbig, channel.
I would, yeah. I mean,
right away.
Absolutely. I think it's really about branding yourself too. And I didn't realize that when I started, I just wanted to make people laugh, and I just wanted to make videos in any capacity because there was no gatekeeper telling me I couldn't upload a video.
Right. But then you decided you wanted to eat and make people laugh.
Yes, exactly. Right. I wanted to pay my bills. And so I didn't realize that I had started cultivating an audience that was primarily female and mostly ages like 16 to 30, so very millennial facing, and they thought of me, as I read more and more comments, as their like awkward older sister character. And I'd never thought about that before because I don't have sisters, I only have brothers. And once I sort of leaned into that as my brand, I found a lot more satisfaction in the content I was making, a lot more focus on how I wanted to operate, even in other platforms, the type of books I wanted to write, the type of movie narratives I wanted to be part of. And so it took time to develop that brand, but once it was kind of more set in stone, it was a much helpful tool to like continuing in other areas.
And so then how are you leveraging that for more traditional entertainment, since we've spent now 2 days talking to people who are looking for actors who have big followings, looking for talent, like scouring YouTube for the next thing. And so how is that developing for you?
It's been really amazing. I think the thing, when I lived in the city, I didn't have a television, and so my primary source of entertainment came from YouTube. And that was so innovative to me because that was so new. It was so convenient. You watch at your leisure, and you watch at your convenience. It's in your pocket everywhere you go. And so the idea of creating something that no one else was doing was really exciting. And so my friends and I had opportunities a few years ago to create our first film called Camp Dakota, and we distributed it digitally rather than traditionally theatrical release. And it did really, really well, and it gave our audience a new way to interact with us as content creators and a different type of content to consume. And all the while we were shooting the film, we were with our cameras vlogging on set behind the scenes, so the audience felt like they were part of the process from start to finish. And it created that much more of a meaningful product to our audience once it was finished in total.
So what would keep you from, say, now writing a half-hour comedy script and selling it to Amazon or selling it to Netflix or trying to?
Nothing would keep me. If anyone's looking to buy in this room, I'm very down to pitch you for some ideas. I think it's the way, I get excited about doing something new and delivering something new. I actually worked with the Hello Lab, the people that are going to be coming out here later, spoiler alert, sorry, to talk. We created a series last summer that was really exciting where we worked with Wattpad, this platform for writing, and we crowdsourced a novella with the audience. Week by week, we would give them writing prompts, and they would submit chapters, and we slowly crafted this entire piece of fiction. And at VidCon, which is basically the Comic-Con for the YouTube community, we did a full table read that was super interactive. It had a fully designed, beautiful set for this like massive audience, and it was really, really cool, and something I had never seen before, I'd never been a part of before. And so creating things that have roots in traditional and some roots in new media are really exciting.
Very cool. I should mention, by the way, this conversation is being live streamed. I forgot to tell you.
Oh, I've heard of the internet.
So the internet. So if you have questions or comments, you out there who are watching the live stream, if you tweet them at #TheGrill2017 and somebody is quick enough to hand it to me on stage, we can ask the innovators your question, or you can just comment as you watch.
Very cool.
So should we show the innovators?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right. Here you go, is a quick reel of this year's innovators on TheWrap's innovator list.
Thank you so much for naming us TheWrap's Sexiest Men of 2017. We are so honored to be here.
That's not it at all.
Yes. What?
This is the Innovators list.
Wow, we're innovatively sexy.
Does that mean we're #disruptors?
My dad is definitely a role model. He came from the kind of renewable energy and energy world, and just was an entrepreneur and really creative, and someone that I looked up to and admired his drive and creativity growing up.
What I'm doing right now that I think no one else is doing is I'm actively paying for people to go to class to learn how to write television. If somebody else is doing that, please call me, text me. That'd be fantastic. We can maybe come together and work on it together.
I would tell myself to be even less patient,
to innovate and to embrace change and to look at things and be impatient with the way things are and wanting to change is okay.
And so my advice to myself, I guess, would be to just enjoy it and grow as you can, and be aware that you're going to learn so much more from your mistakes than you ever are from your successes.
So please join us in welcoming some of those wonderful innovators: Dan Altman from We Buy Gold, Emiliano Kalinzuk from Raise, Billy Parks and Karen Spencer from AT&T Hello Lab, Noel Maxim from Emagispace, and Farhad Masudi from Tubi TV. Congrats, come on out. I'm going to sit at the end. You sit over here. All right. I'm going to sit way down here. No, you guys sit in the middle. All right. Congrats. So we got a big group of you. James Corden's recording a show, so he didn't want to be over. He couldn't be over here. I'll throw out the first question. Grace, you jump on in whenever. Sure. And there's no particular order, so just jump on in. I'm a big environmentalist, so I wanted to ask Noel, who I've just met 5 seconds ago. So just met many of these people 5 seconds ago. So if I mix you up, forgive me. I love the idea of your company, which is being environmentally conscious about set building in the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. So, like dirty little secret, I used to work at the New York Times, and before that the Washington Post. And through all those years, I tried to pitch a story about all the waste that was going on sets, just because it's a bête noire of mine. So I think we might be conspiracists in that regard. So where did Emagispace, the idea for it, come from? And what made you decide to leave your job and go do it?
Well, I spent 20 plus years in daytime television as an executive producer, writer, director. And during that time, the business started to contract. So we were looking at our line item budgets, and we realized that as much as we were in the business of creating television, we were actually in the business of designing, building, trucking, storing, and breaking down sets. It was that expensive. And I started to wonder why one person couldn't do it. It was very frustrating. And so my supposition was that it should be faster to change the set than it was to move the company. And that it was the genesis of Emagispace, and that's what it's done. It's really taken the life cycle of the building of a set. It's a sustainable product. It's meant to be reused and repurposed, and then it stores trucks and sort of puts up and down very quickly and easily. Oops, sorry.
Yeah. Very cool, very cool. Grace, over to you. You can lob a question out. Go ahead.
Well, I guess my curiosity for everyone that's on this panel, I mean, I kind of happened into my career by accident, but it feels like everyone here kind of saw something niche that wasn't being represented or wasn't being created, and then chased after that with purpose. Could you speak a little bit to how you were able to figure out and dial in on what wasn't happening that you wanted to make different?
I can. I chased after you.
Yeah. Billy Parks and I have history.
Yeah.
Good history.
Yeah. No, I think with the.
Let's say you are, because we don't.
I'm Billy. I'm Billy Parks, and Karen and I did Hello Lab, which is a program with AT&T that work with creators like Grace to bring entertainment to young people across the web. But I think one of the things that we saw was that artists like Grace, who had done a great job of building communities online, were always being pulled in different directions. Like Grace is she has this great book that she's writing, so she's telling her audience about that, or she has all kinds of different ways that she's pushing her audience to this thing and off that platform and moving them around, but always looking for any story to tell her own audience. So we kind of at AT&T and as part of Full Screen, we built this program that was putting resources with creators and letting them tell stories across their platforms, where they could just say, hey, I teamed up with AT&T, and we're going to bring you this innovative way of engaging with their audiences and telling entertainment stories. So that was like a space we saw. We saw a lot of creators wanted to be able to tell their own stories without doing it somewhere else or kind of subscribing to traditional methods. But we wanted to just enable them to do cool things like ask their audience to help them write a novella and then perform it live on stage in front of 4,000 people.
That's what you did?
That's what we did with Grace, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It was very cool.
It was super fun.
And it's great because I heard you talk about the frustration of wanting to create yourself, and that was the need. You went out and found a way to express yourself. And I think at least that's what we found at Emagispace. It was a way to allow or enable us, because I can field strip a camera. I can write it. I can do all this stuff. The one thing I couldn't do was build a set.
Yeah.
And so that sort of need to do something different is what drove us.
Want to ask the same question? Anybody else?
Well, I'll jump in. So about 7 years ago, I had this crazy idea that...
Tell us who you are, because I'm not sure everybody...
Sorry, Farhad Massoudi. I'm CEO founder at Tubi TV. We're the #1 free ad-supported video-on-demand service in the country. So we're backed by MGM Lionsgate. Let me actually give you a little history. So I started about 7 years ago with this crazy idea that TV apps will one day replace TV channels. And we built a platform to support media companies. We had Stars and many other companies where we were supporting them on video-on-demand services. And really quickly in that process, we learned that consumers have major hesitation towards paying, subscribing to yet another subscription video-on-demand service. Frankly, I think media industry hasn't learned that lesson yet, which is hilarious. But we tested ad-supported, we tested transactional VOD, and we tested subscription VOD. We saw massive demand from consumers on ad-supported. So about 3 years ago, we decided to launch our own direct-to-consumer brand called Tubi TV, which took off. We signed a partnership with Paramount Pictures, MGM Lionsgate invested in us. We're one of the top most viewed, most downloaded video-on-demand services in the country now.
So, and I have you instead of Hulu. Why?
Because we're free, and so you could have Hulu as well. But you could complement your subscription service with the largest library of TV shows and movies. And we have a wide variety of content, anywhere from Spanish content to TV shows and movies. You can watch your favorite movie from
I guess I'm asking what Grace
ago.
was asking before. What was the opportunity that you saw that within the gap that wasn't being...
Well, the big opportunity was that, again, the consumers want to watch more video-on-demand service, but they don't want to pay more. So they may have one subscription service like Netflix, but they don't want to subscribe to Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and a few other services. So we stepped in and offered an alternative to subscription services, and we've seen quite a bit of success.
Mm-hmm. You guys?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Altman, the co-founder of We Buy Gold. It's not a pawn shop. It's a new media
I actually thought it was one of those like Glenn Beck things.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Do you deliberately confuse people?
That's
with
the idea. Yeah, I mean, for most people, they don't. Most of our consumers don't really understand that concept. It's like 16 years old. So we are the easiest way to describe us is kind of a new age Adult Swim, but focused around kind of music and hip hop. And really like the impetus to starting what we started was we had an agency called Narrative. We were helping kind of big brands and publishers figure out social. So we had we sat on the Disney lot for a little while, helped grow countless accounts to many millions of followers and help them kind of build programming on their own. And really what we saw was an opportunity to do it ourselves and really say, it's not being done right by the traditional players. If we can create shows and concepts and formats that are really unique and native to those platforms, there's a great opportunity to build IP in a less expensive way than is normally done, and really connect with who's actually watching those platforms versus kind of who the traditional media companies think are watching the platforms. And so we partner with DJ Khaled, and most of our content is focused on animation. We focused on it really because we saw this amazing proliferation of just the ease of creating live action content that platforms have made. We wanted to create something that visually looked really different. And we launched our first show a couple months ago with a big hip hop star, 21 Savage. And on Instagram, where we saw kind of music as the focus, had about 20 million views. And we're doing another season with a brand and really just kind of focused on what does TV look like when TV is on your phone, on an app, and that's what you spend most of your time consuming.
Thank you. I'm Emiliano Kademzuk. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Race. We founded the company with Sofia Vergara and Luis Balaguer. And essentially, it's a media company targeting the Hispanic market. The opportunity specifically that we saw was that for the biggest, fastest growing demographic group in the US, there's been a duopoly, two broadcasters that pretty much for the longest time have been importing programming from Mexico. So that to us was a big opportunity.
Univision.
Exactly.
And
Telemundo. And those companies, being linear broadcasters, are targeting an older audience. So there's a massive amount of people sort of here that weren't being serviced. And we said it's still important to work with recognizable faces and recognizable talent. So we kind of picked the ones that could talk to that demographic, and much like you guys, producing content with them to target that demo.
And are you putting it out on every platform? Or
right now, we're distributing through social media networks, and we're building our own site. And we also have a more of a television production unit that works with the SVOD players and the broadcasters as well to make content that's more, we like to create the MTV generation for Hispanics.
In Spanish?
We're doing it in Spanish right now. Next year we're going to start experimenting on Spanglish, which is what I speak at home. It works.
What kind of input has Sofia Vergara had with the company?
Well, Sofia is she's very involved on the areas where she's keen. Everything that's female lifestyle, she really cares about, and she's a phenomenal businesswoman above and beyond just being a great performer. So I think we got a very good sort of complement with people. I was at Fox for 14 years before starting this, so some of us come sort of polluted with old media ideas, but we have a great group of young people that sort of are very digital natives, and we have talent as well. So within that combination, shaking it up, we hope to build something that's meaningful for the target.
Have you met her?
Sophia?
He does whatever she says.
Yeah, I'm the looks of the company.
I'm curious, because you guys have all had a lot of different success. To humanize you, what are your biggest mistakes? Because I think, like I saw James Corden say in that montage, that part of growing is learning and embracing the mistakes you've had. And I make mistakes constantly, and so just want to feel not alone. If you tell me yours.
Well, you asked a minute ago what our focus was or what brought us here, and I was thinking, I feel in general like my whole life has just been one long Forrest Gump type of situation. So like it feels really chaotic and jumbly while you're going through it, but then now that I'm older and can look back on the last 20 years of my working life, it all makes sense, which is great, thank goodness. Like Billy said, I now work at AT&T, but really I started out just wanting to be an actor, wanting to be a photographer, wanting to be an artist of any kind, and realizing that I wasn't good enough at any of it. So the next best thing, in my opinion, was to be a steadfast supporter of artists. And so I began by being a talent agent and found that to be really boring. Had the good fortune to meet Ashton Kutcher and worked for him for 5 years, which is definitely why my name is ever mentioned in the same sentence as the word innovation to this day. So I was really fortunate to work with him, and then through a lot of venues ended up at Twitter and was the head of creators for Vine, another incredibly innovative company that I'm sorry is no longer with us. And I'm now working with Billy and others at AT&T and Hello Lab to really put creators in the driver's seat, and again, like just following that through line of wanting to support artists, recognizing that in today's world, digital creators have taught themselves so much about this business, have taught themselves how to create and edit and style videos in a way that has never been done before. Actors were folks who hit their marks and said their lines previously, and now are so holistic in their approach, and I think when brands first started working with creators, they wanted to just insert their agenda into the creator's voice. And now with Hello Lab and other projects similar, we are really just allowing the creator to express themselves, like you mentioned with your project. And we're just here to throw some fuel onto that fire. So I think the biggest mistake I could say that I've made along the way is just doubting myself, because in the end, it all works out.
It's good to know, since you made the Innovators list. Apparently you overcame the doubting yourself part, so that's good. I love Grace's question. I'd love to hear what...
For us, or me, it was allowing capital to get in the way, allowing tradition to be the gatekeeper. So for me, there was only one way. There was the 3 networks, there were movies of the week, and you had to pitch and try to get that to happen. It was the only way to make your own product. So allowing that kind of stalled me. And now, sort of breaking out of that, I could look back and say, be more impatient. Just like I said, recognize something. With our product, what it does is it kind of breaks out. What we realized is that it kind of replaces the 2x4. Because it works for commercial real estate and offices and trade shows and sort of you name it.
It's like, describe it a little bit more. Is it like pieces that...
Yeah, I'm not supposed to use the L word, but it's Legos.
Okay.
We created...
Who said you're not allowed to use the L word?
I'm allowed. I'm going to break out the tradition. But it's Legos for the rest of us. One person can interconnect walls and structures of all kind. Mm-hmm. And once you do that, and I realized when looking at it, because I went and I did a soap opera in Senegal for the World Health Organization to create a...
But of course.
An industry there.
As one does.
And what we realized is that it's great for NGOs and disaster relief and shelter, and everybody that is sitting up here on the stage is doing something that's innovative, that wants to change the way people perceive something. And that's what we do at Emagispace, and that's what I would tell myself. Stop trying to run that traditional route.
There was a point where you woke up one day and you said, I just need to shed this thing that I'm carrying around?
I can't say yes to the network anymore. I can't just follow. I love the networks. They were great to me. But the idea is that you have to be just episodic enough, but not too episodic. They have to remember what they were going to do. There's very strict formulas that you have to follow in order to drive into the commercial, because really it's about that crescendo into the commercial to make the audience stay there just long enough to come back at the next bit. Right. So that limits you. And by playing, but you think you're following the rules. You think that, I'm creative because I've learned all these rules and now I can play in this world and I can win. But really all you've done is learn to follow the rules. You're no longer a kid. You're kind of playing by their rules, and you've accepted that that's the way you're supposed to do it. And really what's great about this panel is I think that everyone here has sort of ceased to accept that. There's a new way to look at it. There's a new way to embrace it. There's a new way to attack it. Right, and that's what I think.
But I'm going to be annoying and ask one more time. Was there a moment?
Oh, sorry.
No, well, was there actually a specific moment where you hit a breaking point, or someone said something to you, or a pile of money fell in your lap and you said, "Now I'm going to"?
Yeah, really, what it was is that I did this other thing. I'm a traditional guy, so I wanted to build something and then have it take me away. And at a certain point, I had an investor group, Alpha Edison, and they came and they said, I was trying to raise some, I was self-funding, so they were trying, so they came along and they said, hey, we don't think you should self-fund anymore. And I went, someone will give me money to do this? And yes, we will, as a matter of fact, and here's what we think you should do with it. And they were very, very helpful. And so once I realized that there was a whole new swimming pool out there to jump into, that's when I took the chance.
That's cool.
So I'd say, I've been doing this company for about 7 years, and as I'm sure everybody, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As I'm sure everybody on this panel they're entrepreneurs, so they attest to this, is that it's really hard, right? Every day you wake up, there are new challenges. You're trying something new, and no one had done it before, and frankly, you realize a lot of times you don't know what you're doing. You're inadequate. You're not ready for this stage of the company. And every 6 months, now the company's grown, more people, and there are new challenges. And you gotta not let that get under your skin. At least that was a lesson for me, is you do your best and you recognize that you're gonna make mistakes. So don't let the mistakes discourage you. Those are lessons learned that you can take with you and hopefully do them better in the future.
Yeah, and I would say to add to that, I mean, I think like percentage-wise, probably more mistakes than kind of successful, outings. But those kind of successes that you see along the way allow for the business to move forward. So I think it's just kind of like you said, it's we've hired more wrong people than right people, but the right people have made the company what it is, and made probably more wrong decisions than right decisions, but those kind of small right decisions have made the company what it is. So really for us, it's about kind of learning how to deal with those wrong decisions and turn them into successful ones.
Yeah, and one of our investors, in fact, we had a moment where he sat down, we were chatting, and he said, look, being an entrepreneur is just like an athlete, and you got to know where your flaws are, and you got to work on them every day. And if you don't get better at it, then you lose the game. There are other people who are harder working and smarter than you, so you got to work harder. And that's hard. You wake up every day and go, okay, I'm not good at these things. I need to get better at them. And so I think that's really helpful to grow the company.
Emiliano or Billy?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think my biggest mistake is something I probably continue to struggle with, which is just allowing career growth to be in front of personal growth. And I think, and maybe that's like too personal like conversation for here, but I think, yeah. I mean, I just think that like. Just being at, trying to be at human scale with what you do and trying to make sure that, I'm a firm believer of anything that you put in front of that kind of growth, you will lose. So just keeping in mind that like you can be doing really well in a place and not doing well in another place, and it will knock you down. So I think it mimics what you're saying about working on your flaws, but just keeping that like eye in the mirror, I think is an important thing. Just everything that's going on today. Like, it's just the most important thing.
I feel like this is very therapeutic for me. So
yeah, good. Anything I can do. Anything I can do.
Did you want to take a shot?
I mean, that resonates a lot with me as well. I think, particularly, I grew up, I had just one job at Fox. I mean, literally started at like 23, 24, and that's all I did. And I was having a great time. I mean,
what did you do?
I was just like in the Rupert Murdoch legions all over the world. I mean, I ran Latin American cable networks. Then I was president of the Fox cable networks in Europe. Then Peter Cherny brought me back here to take over Fox Television Studios, which later was Fox 21. Then I ran Liz Murdoch's Shine operation in the US. And I was having a great time. Great time. Every 3 years, something new, living in Rome, back here. I mean, really great. But at some point, the business starts to change. And you're into your thing. And your peripheral vision is not seeing what's going on. And I think at all times, particularly if you work in media, you have to stop the ball, like as we say when we play soccer, and just look at where every player is standing on the field, and then think, where am I? Am I having a good time? Am I good at this? Or am I good for what this business was 5 years ago? And then what am I going to do about that? And then... and it has to do a lot with what you said about your personal life. I mean, you need to have proper interruptions on what you're doing to really know where you're standing and where the business is going, and is it time to correct? Because if you don't do that, you end up being either a senior executive in a conglomerate that's slashing jobs and restructuring, and your life is a mess, or you're irrelevant. Those are not good choices. Either way you go. So... I think it's everybody in this business needs to be completely reassessing and being, more than anything, honest with yourself. Like, because at some point, the paycheck may stop coming. And then what? If you're not in peace at home, you're going to be miserable. If you don't have a plan B and a plan C, then you're going to be miserable. I mean, there's a lot of things that you got to think about. But, we wake up in the morning, we get in the car, get in the call, come back, we're tired, we go to sleep. And, in my case, I became religious after because I needed to find a way.
After you left Fox?
Not because of that.
I mean, we need a rabbi, we need a therapist, we need a lot of people. A lot of healing going on. Yeah, we need a shaman.
Not necessarily because of that, but I did want to find ways.
Because we would have definitely just made that presumption, for sure.
No, I think in your life you need proper structure between your personal, your beliefs, your job. It's an equilibrium, and the minute that goes off balance, your life goes off balance. And then in your professional life, at the same time, self-assessment, self-evaluation. Am I doing the right thing? Do I like it? Is it worth it? Am I good at it? What do I need to do? And you need to force those interruptions.
Well, it's interesting what you guys are talking about. Grace, you feel free to interrupt me at any point because you are in this too. But I feel like what you're talking about is having a certain sense of clarity and focus. And what you're actually, each of you have done is jumped into the void, really. Like each of you in your way have taken a big leap where you never know where the next, challenge or the next disaster even may be coming from. So that is the life of an entrepreneur or an innovator, and I would say that is as true for Lena Waithe, who's on the list this year, who's a writer who just won the Emmy for the Aziz Ansari Master of None series, and James Corden, who has to go out every night and entertain millions of people or try. You're enveloped by that chaos every day, but I'm very struck by how each of you talk about, first of all, you chose that instead of a more secure position that you may have had elsewhere. I find that kind of interesting. It probably says something about the kinds of people you are. Not everybody can do that, or do you feel like anybody could do it?
I mean, I think everybody should do. But yeah, you never know what people need, But it's been a fun ride. But I definitely think being willing to make mistakes and look in the mirror like a really good part of this process, and it helps you not be as afraid for change and new things, for sure.
Yeah, you guys your program is about, or your company is a lot about mentorship, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we as part of the Hello Lab program, it's in its second year, and the first year we did with Grace and 10 other creators, and then year 2. Which was the idea of giving voice to creators and working with them to kind of help AT&T kind of like have a relationship with an audience that was different than just being there on Thursday night when Friends is on, Mm-hmm. And when we thought about the second year of the program, we wanted to continue our work with digital creators, but we also wanted to work with kind of more traditional craft filmmakers. And we also really heard the audience saying like, hey, we need more women, we need more people of color, we need more LGBTQ behind the camera. So we reached out to some great people in town who had great success kind of breaking through walls, like Octavia Spencer and Common and Rick Famuyiwa and Nina Yang Bon Jovi, and I'll remember it in 1 second. And we went to each one of them and said, hey, what filmmaker's been knocking at your door? What filmmaker is ready to take their first step and make a short film that we would then premiere on DTV? So we put together a list of filmmakers at the suggestion and under the guidance of these great people who had broken through, and we gave them an opportunity to make a short, and they did us all proud. These are great pieces of filmmaking that have heart and grit, and it really just gave them a chance to have some great production resources and under the mentorship of some great creators. That was what we did this year.
And that was part of the sort of original mission of Hello Lab, or that's something that you developed as you went along?
Yeah, I mean, Hello Lab was always about teaming up with creators, Instagrammers, YouTubers, Snapchatters, anybody that was developing a direct relationship with the audience and working with them as as AT&T and Fullscreen to help them kind of like to add whatever they needed. Grace had a great idea, and we gave her bits and pieces around the edges. She's like, no, I don't need that. I have my own editor. I'm going to shoot this my own way on my own place. And we're like, okay, cool. like,
want to drive to your studio.
She didn't want to come to our studio. She didn't want us hanging around her area. So we're like, cool, go do it. And then some other creators had a script idea, and we like wrote the script with them and hired a director and did the whole thing. So that's kind of what the program was about, was supporting them as they wanted it. And then year 2, we really wanted to respond to a need that we saw in the audience, which was like, hey guys, like we need more opportunities for the underrepresented, and we need to like see ourselves represented in, in art. So we afforded them that opportunity. We were lucky enough to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of approached me about this new lab that you were creating, you and I had worked on a previous project, and it went really, really well, but I wonder how the rest of you decide who you work with, either creatively or on the business end. I was like a one-woman production team for so long, so even bringing on agents or managers, it was a gut feeling for me. And I wonder how, I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons about choosing either business partners or creative partners, and if you have any guidelines for yourself now that might be helpful.
Yeah, so I actually have one, which is that I've had the pleasure of working with some incredible people at Tubi, and folks that are self-learners and willing to evolve with the company. They're the most incredible talent to have around, especially at a startup where you're evolving. And in 6 months, we're a different company that we're today. Having people can grow with you, it's fantastic. And the other one is that most of us are in the intersection of entertainment and technology. So most people you hire either come from Silicon Valley or tech world or come from the entertainment world, and you quickly need to learn how the other side of the brain functions. And at least recognize that you have to listen to other people in the room. So that was a pretty key attribute that we found was very helpful.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that we found are just kind of hiring people that challenge the kind of status quo of what we're doing. I think it's really easy to hire people that just kind of like shake their head and go along with everything, but the most successful people in our company have been the ones that have kind of challenged what we were doing and really kind of ask new questions and make you think about things differently, whether it's working with production companies or hiring internally. Our goal has always been to bring on people, and it's not always easy, but bring on people that kind of challenge what you're doing every day.
Yeah, this might sound a little bit pat, but I look for people who tell me instead of me telling them. So people who come in and start saying, well, what you've got to do, and this is where you're going wrong, and they feel like they have a fight. And then really my job is to listen to them and kind of get out of the way, right? And if I can if I have those kinds of self-starters, then then it's kind of keeping the rails on, and it allows me to go do what it is I'm best at.
Anybody else want to? I was going to ask you guys where you see your companies, your respective projects in, say, 12 months from now and maybe 3 years from now. Things move very fast and they change very fast. If you're just looking to like sell it to somebody, you can say that too. People sometimes ask me that question. I usually hate it because like things change day to day sometimes, and you don't know. But if you, I mean, Farhad, where do you see?
So I'll tell you my vision of what the company should be, and obviously it's going to be some work to get there.
When AT&T Lab buys it, just kidding.
Maybe we would buy AT&T now. Look, I believe that. Obviously, the trend of more and on-demand viewership is going to continue to grow, and linear TV ratings are going to continue to decline, whether we exist or not. That's the reality of today's ecosystem. And in that world, consumers are going to subscribe to maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 subscription services, but most households are not going to subscribe to a bunch of bundles. And if you fast forward to 2020, I believe the largest TV network in the country will be a video-on-demand free service. And so hopefully Tubi TV will be that one day.
You think you'll be the largest TV company?
Well, it's an ambitious goal, but I think that
I just want to be clear.
Free TV, the largest TV network in the country will be a free one, and it will be ad-supported. In terms of footprint, not revenue per se. Netflix obviously is going to continue to grow.
Yeah, it will take time. Yeah. And that's your ambition. That's your goal for Tubi TV. Cool.
My goal for Emagispace is really clear. I don't think I'll get it done in 1 year, but maybe soon thereafter. We're going to replace the 2x4. We are going to make it so that when you walk into a room, you don't think this is a permanent space. I can make this space adapt to what I need rather than me adapting to it. And it's going to change every single real estate business on this planet.
Oh, you're not just talking sets, you want to build buildings too?
I want to build, right now I'm in offices, Notel, WeWork, that kind of place. We're in commercial retail, we're building pop-up retail stores for a company called Barrels Global. We're going international, we're doing liquor control board, and we're doing all kinds of, you name it, from trade shows to performance to museums and theaters to disaster relief.
That's cool. Have you raised money, or are you raising money?
We're now in our we're going out for another raise now. Last year, a year and a half ago, we raised our Series A, and now we've reached a point where we can, my brother likes to say, I can feel the bolts just about to fire off, and that's really, we're trying to raise money to see that happen.
And what's the B round going to be?
How much?
How much?
Well, you know what's interesting about it is that I started out asking for a lot, and then we had a lot of sales enter the pipeline. And when you go out to sell, you have to give up a piece of your company, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you want to give up as little of your company as possible. So fortunately, my sales rate has increased my run rate. So right now, my Series B ask is going down, which has been
cool.
Great.
Keep more equity. That's great.
Well, we're in the media space, which I think is such a fascinating industry at this time, and there's such a race for who's going to figure out the content game the fastest and who's going to really crack that model wide open. So I'm just on the edge of my seat every day at work, and I think it will continue to be like that for years to come. So I'm excited to be in this space, but really as it pertains to Hello Lab specifically and our work with digital creators, the oldest millennial is now 36, so I think we're really close to the time where when you say the phrase YouTube star in a room full of adults, you're not going to get a bunch of eyes rolling, and the perception of digital creators is shifting with every year that we see, and I really feel like they deserve the legitimacy and the respect of the industry and of Hollywood, and they are rapidly becoming the powerhouses that they deserve to be, and that's what I'm here for. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I work at Otter Media, which is a joint venture with Peter Chernin and AT&T, and the work that has gone on there with building direct-to-audience SVODs, building brands, and the left brain, right brain, and the scale that is in that company with a bunch of really agile, smart executives that I learn from every day. I'm super excited about the service that they can be to media companies, to audiences, to people who are constantly evading the reach of traditional broadcast and pay TV. So,
I would want to see the goal of, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So at least have one entertainment franchise coming organically from the Hispanic space that sort of catches fire. Yeah. I think that's what we're shooting for. And over the long run, try to build something that represents a voice and a generation, just like MTV did, for my generation, but again, representing the Hispanics.
So MTV for the Hispanic audience.
I mean, I don't know if it would be just that. Back in the days, it was only music. Today, it's a much broader brand. But I think if you look at the Hispanic, at least in the television space, it's been mostly broadcast networks, not a brand that you would sort of wear on a shirt. We want to become that sort of logo.
Yeah, for us, it's really creating kind of this Adult Swim or MTV, but really thinking about social at the root of it. So when it comes to an animated show, creating something that's related to a meme or related to something that's viral within 2 weeks versus taking 6 months, and being able to kind of create content and franchises and merchandise around that and branding opportunities around that by just moving really quickly and understanding the speed and different nuances of each platform that will increasingly take more and more time away from TV consumption and where big publishers are spending most of their time. If we can kind of slide in and say we can create a culture and a vision that's kind of weird and different but really represents who's spending time on Instagram, and the platforms that will come from that, that's kind of where we see ourselves.
Very cool.
I have a question, because you talked a little bit about mentorship within your program, but on a personal mentorship level for each of you, who in the industry inspires what you do? Or let's say you had to add someone to this list for 2018, who would you want to add?
Well, I'm lucky to have Sandy Grusho, the former chairman of Fox, on board. He's been immensely helpful. I have Lionsgate MGM, who are investors. But I'd love to, and I haven't met Ted Turner. I think he was so visionary when broadcast networks were transitioning to cable to be able to launch cable news network, CNN. And I think that I'd love to have him as my advisor, but I don't think he's working these days anymore.
All I can do is ask.
I'd love to meet him.
It's funny, I met him once, briefly. There have been a lot of innovators that I've worked with over the years, and I've been really fortunate to have their advice. And the one thing I pride myself on is I've kept them. And I always say, if someone wants to be your mentor, let them. Right, learn from them. And for me, I had a surprise mentor in Glenn Gaynor, Senior VP of Production for Screen Gems. He really is an innovator and saw what we do the first second. He said, "Oh, I get it." It was done. And our investors have been great. And if there were sort of one person I would love to meet and to sort of get all their information about how to change the way people view space, it'd be Frank Gehry.
Oh. Well, he's here in LA.
Yeah, I know. I haven't met him. I've been trying. Because he sees space so differently.
Go knock on his door.
Yeah.
I bet he'd love what you're doing.
Yeah, I would. I'd love to find out.
Yeah. Okay. Keep us in the loop.
I'm big into Chance the Rapper, and I feel like every day I turn on the news, or I don't actually watch the news, but I open Twitter and see that he's like somewhere else doing something amazing, and it just never ceases to amaze me, everything that he's involved in from a leadership perspective and a charitable perspective. And, I think even 5 years ago, if you had sort of told someone the story of Chance the Rapper turning the music industry on its head, nobody would have believed that it was possible, because people have been saying for years that the music industry needs a refresh. And I think he really cracked that wide open and remained fiercely independent, while also delivering a really positive and uplifting message in a space in the hip-hop industry that typically the fastest route to success is to be really negative or braggadocious or, all of these things that he decided to take the opposite path of. So.
Love Chance. Judy McGrath was one of my former bosses, and she's just rad. She leads with kindness, and she's cool, and there's not a person who can walk around and say, "Oh man, Judy, I don't really like her." Like she's a pretty special person. So she's been a big influence on. Well, I'm sure she could have been a bigger influence, but like she's a great person. I would love to have a legacy like Judy.
I admire people who take chances on a person and take the risk, even if they're not sort of the traditional choice. And I was very lucky to work for people who are phenomenal. From Haim Saban to Rupert Murdoch to Peter Chernin. Peter, I was in. They sent me to Italy to run cable channels. I didn't know Italian, or anything. And then
maybe they thought Spanish and Italian were the same thing.
I thought
so
that
they're
too.
American.
So I started talking what I thought was Italian, and people were laughing at me. So at least I proved to be a funny guy there, thinking that the words in Spanish meant the same thing in Italian, but they didn't. And then 5 years later, Journey says, well, I want you to go run that studio. I told Peter, like, I have no idea how a studio works. Like, it's you asking me to run a pharmaceutical company. Like, I have zero idea. I don't know anything. And he said, go and do it anyways. And I think, looking back, those are decisions that, for them, it was just another business risk, a big one. But for me, it was really a big part of my life. And I think people that take those risks on someone who's young and very inexperienced, I think that's something that hopefully all of us will be able to do in the future. But I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll like kind of dive more into the category. So these are two very weirdly different categories, but I think like one area and one company that's doing something really interesting there is kind of Asian culture and tapping into content in Asia. So there's a company called 88 Rising, and they're doing some unbelievable stuff when it comes to kind of finding talent in Asia, bringing them here, building them there, and just doing really like weird stuff that nobody would think is successful, but has been really successful. And then another area that I would love to see kind of represented would be podcasting. And I think that people like Oren Rosenbaum, who's back there, from UTA. It's helping kind of push forward what big media brands, new media brands are doing in the podcasting space, and kind of grabbing content from those places and turning them into shows, turning them into movies. I think that'll be equivalent to, if not more important than looking at books for content. So I think those two areas are places that would be great to see kind of representation.
We've got about 5 minutes, and I think we could take some questions. You good with that? Yeah. Anybody have any questions for these innovative folks over here? Yeah.
So first, I just want to say how great Emagispace is. So separate from this, I'm
Thank
familiar
you.
with it. So
did you plant him?
No.
But I'd like to meet you later.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Everyone should check it out. Okay, my question is, you guys are the innovators, so a little bit different than the last question, but who do you see that's innovating? Dan, you kind of addressed it a little bit. You sort of said it with your thing, but is there any company or individual that you're seeing that sort of, could be on that stage next year? Like, who do you see that inspires the up-and-comers?
Go ahead, Billy.
I mean, I'm a little biased, but just a very little biased because I pretty much speak my mind. But I think Crunchyroll is an amazing company. Like, it's an amazing, passionate fan base, passionate group of people. Over 1 million paying subscribers to bring content. I don't know what I'm allowed to disclose, but there's a lot of people who watch that content, and when I think about the opportunity in that space, and I think about early days of MTV, and I think about youth culture, and how that space feels, it feels the same as YouTube space, and it has a lot of the same attributes of community and community around content. People are gathering in the same way they used to when they handed each other kind of bootlegs, and we've seen people just show up in droves to in real life activations, and so I think it's a pretty exciting company and brand that I think we will all be looking at next year, being like, whoa, where did that thing come from? Well, I mean, the market's always been there, and people have tried to do it in different ways, but this is there's a lightning in a bottle thing happening where it's okay, the service is matching the time, is matching the pipes that are available, and, the audience is starving for something that's a little different and has craft at the center of it. It's pretty special. The organizing principle around it is technology and art in a really special way, so.
Very cool. Other questions over on this side? Is there another one that I can't see?
Well, my
I'm sorry.
question has to do with time management.
Do you want to give him a mic? I think there's a mic right
Hello?
behind you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you go.
It's time management. I find that's one of the biggest challenges I have is, you know, there's only so much time in the day, and you have these competing things that you do, and you have to have a social life. Do you have any suggestions or hacks that you use to be more efficient with your time? I know I have certain things, but I'm always interested in what other people are doing to sort of keep sanity in this entrepreneurial world.
I get up at 5 a.m. and if I get up at like 7, then I just feel lost for the rest of the day. So I have to be up before the sunrise and be answering emails and then go to the gym and feel like I've accomplished things before most people are awake. And I also just love driving around when there's no other cars in the road. I feel like I'm winning and I don't even know why.
Good answer. Sleep less. Anybody else?
I've learned that if it's not on my calendar, I won't do it. So I religiously use my calendar.
Grace, you're a one-arm paper hanger.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I treat myself like my own pet. I work off of like treat system. If I work for a certain period of time, I get to watch an episode of Real Housewives. So I am my own 3-year-old. Yeah, it's a great system so far. But sometimes you get distracted. Yeah.
That's great. We have time maybe for one more question. Any more? I can't see so well. One more question? No? Yeah, over there. I can't. Yeah, you pick them, Grace, because I can't. I literally can't see. Here's somebody over here. Yeah. Last one. Please make it good. No pressure.
So the question is, what is going to be, in your opinions, the impact of the virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality movement into this space?
I have a quick answer to that, because what you wouldn't realize is that, believe it or not, Emagispace is making that possible. And the reason is it's very, very difficult to build space that changes on demand for green screen motion capture, for VR, AR, all of those kinds of things. Embedded technology inside the sets, it goes on and on and on. So you have to rethink space in a way that takes advantage of VR and AR, and that is going to be for every performer and every director. Like we did the first 3D soap opera. I did that with Sony. It's a fascinating new cognitive approach, because in film and television we follow what's white. We follow motion, we follow then what's red, and now this has changed the game, because anything that's close to us then becomes a threat. So cognitively, we have to react to that. And so there's going to be a completely new way of telling stories that have to take advantage of that first. So it's not about putting the funny thing right in front of your face or you touching it. It's about creating your fear and way you relate to that space.
Anybody else want to grab the AR/VR?
I just think if you have a good story, it'll be great, and if you don't, it will just be another gadget sitting in the corner. Story. Do I care about it? Do I care about the characters? Is it catching me? That's the acid test, I think.
Anybody else? Yeah. Well, I think we have to bring it to a close. We're out of time, but congratulations, all you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Grace, thank you so much for moderating with me. This is great. Thank you. So that brings our conference to a close. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We're going to celebrate the innovators back up. Oh, I started not on the terrace, at the pool on the 5th floor. Somebody tell me, is that right? I hope that's right. So drinks and cocktails and apps and music and fun. And thanks for being here.